Jennifer Joyce Kesse lived a life shaped by structure. She woke early, dressed carefully, and planned her days with intention. At 24, she had already settled into a rhythm many people do not reach until much later. She worked as a finance manager for a timeshare company in Orlando, Florida. She owned her own condominium. She paid her bills on time. She called her parents regularly. Jennifer did not drift through life. She built it deliberately. Those who knew her described her as independent, precise, and calm. She was not reckless. She did not disappear without notice. Her habits were predictable enough that even small changes stood out. In January 2006, Jennifer returned from a vacation with her boyfriend, Rob Allen. They had traveled together, enjoyed time away, and parted on good terms. There was no argument, no unresolved tension. Jennifer was relaxed when she returned to Orlando and spoke to her family as usual. The condominium complex where she lived, Mosaic at Millenia, was still under development. Many units were unfinished. Construction crews came and went daily. Jennifer had expressed unease about this. She had mentioned being uncomfortable with unfamiliar workers lingering near her building. She had asked for escorts to her car in the past. These concerns were shared casually, not urgently, but they were real. On the night of January 23rd, Jennifer prepared for work the next day. She laid out clothes. She packed her belongings. Her phone was plugged into charge. Nothing about the scene suggested plans to leave town or change routines. The following morning, January 24th, she was expected at work by 9 o'clock. She never arrived. At first, no one panicked. Jennifer was reliable, but being late once would not have been alarming. Calls went unanswered. Hours passed. By afternoon, concern settled in. By evening, fear took its place. Her parents, Drew and Joyce Kesse, were contacted. They lived several hours away but drove to Orlando immediately. When they entered Jennifer's condo, they noticed details that felt wrong. Her purse was inside. Her keys were missing. Her car was gone. Everything else was in place. There were no overturned objects, no broken items, no signs of a struggle. The condo looked exactly as it should have, except Jennifer was not there. To her parents, it was obvious. She had left for work and never made it. The illusion of safety that had surrounded her life collapsed in a single day.
2 days after Jennifer was last seen, her car was found. It was parked at the Huntington on the Green apartment complex, roughly a mile from her condo. The location was unfamiliar to her family. It was not a place she had any reason to visit. The vehicle showed no damage. The interior was clean. There were no signs of a struggle inside. Nothing appeared stolen, but surveillance cameras at the apartment complex had recorded something critical. Footage showed a person parking Jennifer's car and walking away. The individual's clothing was plain. The body type was average. Nothing immediately stood out, except for one disturbing detail. As the person walked past the camera, their face was blocked by fence posts at every possible moment. Frame by frame, the obstruction remained perfectly aligned. Investigators later described it as one of the most frustrating recordings they had ever reviewed. The person was never identified. This footage would become one of the most infamous pieces of surveillance video in true crime history, not because it showed violence or urgency, but because it showed calm control. The individual did not run. They did not hesitate. They walked away as if nothing unusual had happened. The car was processed for evidence. No usable fingerprints were found. No DNA that could be conclusively linked to a suspect. Leads began to form, but none moved forward. Police returned to Jennifer's condo complex and focused on the construction workers. Many were undocumented. Records were incomplete. Background checks had not been required. Some workers left the area shortly after Jennifer disappeared. Others could not be located at all. Jennifer's earlier comments about harassment were now viewed differently. What had once sounded like mild discomfort now felt like a warning that had not been taken seriously enough. As days passed without new information, the case began to settle into silence. No witnesses came forward with clear sightings. No credible tips led to answers. Jennifer's phone never reconnected to a network. Her bank accounts showed no activity. The absence became heavier with each passing hour. For her parents, the lack of answers was worse than bad news. There was no moment to grieve, no truth to face, only uncertainty. Jennifer Kesse had vanished during the most ordinary part of her day, not late at night, not in an isolated place. She had simply gone to work and disappeared somewhere between her front door and her car, and no one could say where the moment of danger began.
Investigators return to the beginning, where all clean cases start. They rebuild Jennifer Kesse's final known movements minute by minute, hoping the routine that defined her life would expose the break in it. Jennifer was last confirmed alive on the night of January 23, 2006. She spoke briefly with her boyfriend, Rob Allen, who was in Fort Lauderdale at the time. The conversation was ordinary. No tension. No hints of distress. She mentioned work the next day and plans for the week ahead. When the call ended, there was nothing left unsaid. Phone records showed no calls or messages after that point. The next morning, Jennifer was expected to leave her condo shortly before 8. Her office was less than a half-hour drive away. Co-workers later confirmed that she was punctual by habit. She did not sleep late. She did not call out without notice. Somewhere between her front door and her car, something intervened. The parking area at Mosaic at Millennia was open. There were no gates, no cameras positioned to cover every angle. Construction had created blind spots, temporary pathways, in areas where visibility was limited. Workers often arrived early, before residents left for work. Police believed Jennifer likely reached her car. There were no signs she was taken from inside the condo. Her shoes were not left behind. Her purse remained inside, but that was not unusual. She often carried only her phone and keys when leaving for work. If she was intercepted, it happened outside. The idea that a crime could occur in broad daylight unsettled investigators. It challenged the usual assumptions. There was no alley, no dark corner, no late hour to point toward. This was a normal weekday morning in a residential complex. As the timeline took shape, the lack of witnesses became harder to explain. Dozens of residents lived nearby. Cars came and went. Yet no one reported seeing Jennifer that morning. No one recalled hearing a disturbance. No one noticed anything out of place. The absence of memory itself became suspicious. Police considered the possibility that Jennifer was familiar with her attacker. Someone she would not resist immediately. Someone who could approach her without raising alarm. A construction worker. A maintenance staff member. Someone who blended into the environment. But familiarity alone did not solve the problem. There was still no physical evidence tying anyone to her disappearance. The timeline stopped abruptly at her parking space, and then it fractured.
Attention shifted fully to the construction crews. Mosaic at Millennia was still unfinished in early 2006. Units were empty. Howls echoed. Workers moved freely between buildings. Oversight was minimal. At the time, background checks were not required. Records of who worked which days were incomplete. Some workers were paid in cash. Others were subcontractors who answered to no clear supervisor. Investigators attempted to identify everyone who had been present that week. It proved nearly impossible. Jennifer had mentioned to her family that some workers made her uncomfortable. She said they stared. She said they lingered. She once reported that a group of men had catcalled her. Management had been informed. No formal complaints were filed. Now those casual remarks became central to the investigation. Police interviewed workers who could be located. Some cooperated. Some refused. Some had already left the area. A few had returned to their home countries. One worker stood out briefly, but no evidence connected him to Jennifer. Others were ruled out by alibis that could not be independently verified. The lack of documentation crippled progress. Investigators also examined the possibility of an opportunistic crime. Someone sees Jennifer alone. Someone acts quickly. Someone uses the environment to their advantage. But even this theory failed to explain the clean disappearance. There was no blood, no damaged vehicle, no abandoned personal items along the route. Jennifer's phone never pinged again. Every path returned to the same conclusion. Whatever happened was controlled, fast, and deliberate. The workers were a possibility, not a proof. And without proof, the case stalled. The surveillance footage from Huntington on the Green became the emotional center of the investigation. Investigators slowed it down, enhanced it, analyzed posture, stride, and clothing. They consulted experts. They released still frames to the public. Nothing changed. The person behind the fence remained faceless. What struck detectives most was the timing. Jennifer's car was parked there around noon on January 24th. That suggested she had been alive hours after leaving her condo. It raised the possibility that she had been held somewhere, even briefly. But where? No location surfaced. No witness reported seeing her. No phone data filled the gap. The man or woman who parked the car appeared calm. There was no sign of panic, no rush. That calm suggested confidence, familiarity with the area, possibly familiarity with Jennifer. The fence became a symbol of the case, not just an obstruction of the camera's view, but a barrier between what was known and what remained hidden. For Jennifer's parents, watching the footage was unbearable. They believed the person knew exactly what they were doing, that the timing was intentional, that the face was hidden by design, not accident. Years later, the footage would still be analyzed, still debated, still unresolved. The case had evidence, but no answers, and the silence that followed Jennifer Kesse's disappearance only grew louder.
As days turned into weeks, investigators returned again and again to Jennifer Kesse's condominium. Not because new evidence appeared, but because the absence of evidence itself demanded explanation. Crimes often leave behind disorder. Jennifer's home offered none. The scene remained frozen in routine. Her bed was neatly made, clothes were folded or laid out with care, dishes were clean. There were no signs that she had packed or prepared to leave town. Her work bag was missing, but that aligned with the assumption that she had left for work that morning. Her purse, however, was still inside. That detail unsettled detectives. Jennifer rarely left without it, but she had mentioned more than once that she sometimes carried only her keys and phone when driving short distances. The phone, however, was gone. Police examined the condo for trace evidence. Floors, door handles, light switches, and countertops were tested. Nothing meaningful surfaced. No foreign fingerprints. No blood. No signs of forced entry. If someone had entered Jennifer's home, they had done so without violence, or they had never entered at all. This led investigators back to the parking area. Jennifer's assigned parking space was inspected closely. Again, nothing. No tire marks out of place. No personal items dropped. No witnesses who recalled seeing her that morning. The condo complex itself became a character in the case. It was quiet, unfinished, and poorly monitored. Hallways connected in confusing ways. Stairwells were open. Construction materials created temporary barriers in hidden corners. For someone familiar with the layout, it offered opportunity. For Jennifer, it offered false security. Police theorized that she may have been approached just as she reached her car. Someone could have spoken to her, asked for help, given directions, requested assistance with something minor. It would not have seemed dangerous. Not at 8 in the morning in her own complex. This theory explained the lack of struggle. It explained why no one heard anything unusual. It explained why her condo showed no disturbance. But it did not explain what happened next. Where did Jennifer go after that moment? The question hovered over every piece of evidence. The condo had said everything it could without words, and what it said was chillingly simple. Jennifer had vanished without resistance.
Jennifer Kesse's phone should have been the one thing investigators could rely on. In most modern cases, a phone leaves traces even when people do not. Calls are logged, towers are pinged, data lingers. Jennifer's phone offered nothing. Records showed her last confirmed activity was the call with her boyfriend on the night of January 23rd. After that, the phone went silent. It did not connect to a tower. It did not send a message. It did not attempt voicemail. It was either powered off or destroyed shortly after she left her condo. This detail shifted the tone of the investigation. A lost phone was one thing. A phone that never reconnected suggested intent. Someone understood that the device could reveal location and timing. Someone acted quickly. Police explored whether Jennifer herself could have turned it off. Those who knew her well dismissed the idea. She relied on her phone. She used it for work. She kept it on. Even while sleeping, turning it off before leaving for work would have made no sense. If someone else powered it down, it likely happened early, possibly within minutes of contact. This reinforced the theory that whatever happened to Jennifer began at the condo complex, not later, not miles away. The crime did not unfold gradually. It was decisive. Investigators requested phone records from surrounding towers, hoping for accidental pings or brief connections. None were found. The phone disappeared as completely as Jennifer herself. To her parents, this detail was devastating. A phone represented reach, a chance, a signal that she was still alive somewhere. Its silence closed that door. The absence of digital evidence did not clarify the case. It deepened the mystery. In a world increasingly defined by electronic trails, Jennifer Kesse had vanished without one, and that absence felt deliberate. As weeks passed, pressure mounted on investigators to produce a suspect. The public wanted a name. The family wanted direction. What emerged instead was a list of possibilities, each incomplete and unsupported by evidence. Police examined Jennifer's personal life first. Friends, Co-workers, her boyfriend, former classmates. Anyone who had regular contact with her was interviewed. Phone records were reviewed. Alibis were checked. Nothing raised concern. There were no arguments, no threats, no unusual behavior in the days leading up to her disappearance. Her relationship with her boyfriend was scrutinized closely, as such relationships often are in cases like this. He cooperated fully. His whereabouts were confirmed. There was no evidence linking him to the crime. Investigators moved on. Attention returned again to the condo complex. Several construction workers became persons of interest, not because of evidence, but because of proximity and opportunity. Some had criminal records. Others had provided inconsistent statements. A few could not be located again after initial interviews. Yet none could be placed with Jennifer that morning. No witness saw her with anyone. No camera captured an interaction. No physical evidence tied any individual to her car, her condo, or her disappearance. These were suspects without faces, ideas without anchors. Police considered whether Jennifer could have been targeted after being observed over time. Her routine was predictable. Her work schedule rarely changed. Someone watching closely would know when she left, where she parked, and how alone she was. That possibility suggested planning, but planning left traces, and no trace appeared. Every theory required at least one leap, a moment where logic gave way to assumption. Investigators resisted that step, knowing it could lead the case astray. Without a suspect, there could be no arrest. Without evidence, there could be no charge. The investigation slowed, not because effort faded, but because there was nowhere left to move. Jennifer Kesse had become a missing person without a person to blame, and that may have been the most unsettling development of all. Drew and Joyce Kesse did not wait for the investigation to save their daughter. As official progress slowed, they stepped into roles they never wanted but felt forced to accept. They learned the language of investigations. They studied timelines, evidence logs, and police procedure. They requested meetings. They asked for updates. When answers were vague, they pushed harder. They also went public. Jennifer's face appeared on television screens across Florida and beyond. Her parents spoke carefully, never accusing, never speculating recklessly. They asked for information. They appealed to conscience. They described Jennifer not as a statistic, but as a person whose absence left a permanent void. Flyers were printed and distributed. Billboards went up. Tips came in. Many of them emotional, few of them useful. Each call raised hope, then lowered it again. At times, the relationship between the family and law enforcement grew strained. The Kesses felt urgency. They believed early momentum had been lost. Police maintained that they had followed every viable lead. Both sides wanted the same outcome, but the gap between effort and result widened. Drew Kesse began reviewing case files himself. He noticed inconsistencies, missed opportunities, witnesses who had not been followed up thoroughly. His frustration hardened into determination. This was no longer only about finding Jennifer. It was about refusing to let her disappear quietly. The case lingered in a difficult space, too old to dominate headlines, too unresolved to be forgotten. Jennifer was neither alive nor confirmed dead in the eyes of the law. Her parents lived in that uncertainty every day, and they refused to accept that silence was the final answer. As months passed, the investigation entered its most dangerous phase, not because of new threats, but because of time itself. Evidence fades, memories soften, witnesses move on. The longer a case remains unresolved, the harder it becomes to revive. For Jennifer Kesse's case, time offered no mercy. Leads that once seemed promising dissolved under scrutiny. Tips that arrived weeks later were often vague or secondhand. People struggled to remember details from an ordinary morning months earlier. The condo complex continued to change. Construction finished. New residents moved in. Old workers disappeared into other jobs, other cities, other countries. The physical environment where Jennifer vanished no longer existed in the same form. Investigators revisited earlier assumptions. They questioned whether the focus on the condo complex had been too narrow. They explored the possibility that Jennifer had been followed from somewhere else. A gas station, a store, a traffic stop. Each scenario required her routine to break in ways no one could confirm. Nothing aligned cleanly. Her bank accounts remained untouched. Her credit cards were never used. There was no sign of financial preparation or escape. Jennifer had left behind her passport, personal documents, and belongings that someone planning to disappear would need. The theory of voluntary disappearance lost credibility with each passing year. What remained was a crime without a scene, a suspect without a name, and a victim without answers. For her parents, time felt cruel. Each day without information was another day suspended between hope and grief. They marked birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries with the same unanswered question: where is Jennifer? The case had not gone cold in the traditional sense. Files were still open, detectives still reviewed it periodically, but momentum was gone. Time had become the enemy, and it showed no sign of giving anything back.
Despite the slowing pace, Jennifer Kesse's case never officially closed. It sat in a category that frustrates both investigators and families. Open, active, unresolved. A case without an ending. Law enforcement revisited it periodically, often prompted by new tips or renewed media attention. Each return followed the same pattern. Old files were reviewed. Evidence was re-examined. Interviews were repeated where possible. The result never changed. No breakthrough came. One of the most persistent questions concerned motive. Without knowing who took Jennifer, it was impossible to know why. There was no demand for money. No contact with her family. No attempt to use her identity. No trace of her after the morning she vanished. Crimes of opportunity rarely leave nothing behind. Crimes of planning usually leave intent. Jennifer's case offered neither. Investigators debated whether the person responsible was someone who had committed similar crimes before. They searched databases, compared patterns, looked for parallels in other cases. Nothing aligned convincingly. The idea that Jennifer was taken by someone who had never offended before, and never again, was unsettling but plausible. It suggested randomness layered with control. The surveillance footage continued to haunt the case. Experts disagreed on what it revealed. Some believed the person appeared shorter than Jennifer. Others argued the posture suggested a man. Clothing was too generic to identify. The quality of the footage resisted enhancement. The fence remained an unyielding barrier. As years passed, the case gained a reputation. Not for brutality or spectacle, but for absence. It became a symbol of how someone could vanish in daylight, in a familiar place, without leaving a single reliable clue. Jennifer Kesse's name did not fade from police records. It remained there, quietly persistent, like the question it represented.
As the years passed, the evidence in Jennifer Kesse's case did not grow. It narrowed. What little existed was examined so often that investigators could recite it from memory. There were the keys. They were never found. There was the phone. It never reconnected. There was the car, clean, undisturbed, parked with care. Each item suggested intent, yet none pointed to a direction. Police revisited the car repeatedly. Advances in forensic methods raised hope that something missed earlier might now surface. New testing was ordered. Old samples were rechecked. The result remained the same. No usable DNA. No fingerprints that could be tied to a suspect. The idea that the car had been wiped down was considered. But even that theory raised questions. Why leave the car at all? Why park it so close to where Jennifer lived? Why risk being seen? Every decision made by the person who parked the car seemed calculated, but not flawless. Calm, but not careless. Confident, but not bold. Investigators considered whether the car placement was meant to confuse, to draw attention away from the true location of the crime, or to suggest Jennifer had gone somewhere willingly. None of those possibilities could be proven. The lack of evidence became its own form of evidence. It suggested someone who understood risk, someone who knew when and how to act, someone who blended into ordinary surroundings. The case did not suffer from too many theories. It suffered from too many unanswered questions, and each unanswered question circled back to the same truth. Jennifer Kesse had been taken by someone who left nothing behind, not because nothing happened, but because nothing was allowed to remain.
After years of waiting for answers that never came, Jennifer Kesse's parents took a step that changed the direction of the case. They turned to the courts. Drew and Joyce Kesse requested full access to the investigative files held by the Orlando Police Department. Their goal was not to interfere, but to understand. They believed that fresh eyes might see something that had been missed. They wanted transparency. What they encountered instead was resistance. Law enforcement argued that releasing the files could compromise the investigation. The Kesses argued that the investigation had stalled long ago. What followed was a prolonged legal battle that drew attention not just to Jennifer's disappearance, but to how missing persons cases are handled when time stretches on without resolution. The case went before a judge. After careful review, the court ruled in favor of the Kesse family. The files would be released, with sensitive information redacted where necessary. It was an unusual decision, and it set a precedent. For the first time, Jennifer's parents held the same documents investigators had relied on for years. What they found was both illuminating and painful. There were leads that had not been followed fully. Witnesses who had been interviewed once and never again. Tips that had been logged but not pursued with urgency. None of it proved misconduct or neglect, but it revealed gaps, moments where momentum had slipped away. Kesse organized the information meticulously. He created timelines, cross-referenced statements, highlighted inconsistencies. He worked with private investigators and legal advisors, determined to keep the case alive. This was no longer only a search for Jennifer. It had become a search for accountability. The release of the files did not bring immediate answers, but it did something just as important. It restored the family's sense of agency. They were no longer waiting in the dark. They were part of the search. And with that shift, Jennifer Kesse's case entered a new phase, one driven not by official procedure, but by a family's refusal to let the truth remain buried in paperwork. With access to the full case file, Jennifer Kesse's parents began to study the details that had once seemed too ordinary to matter. They believed the truth was not hidden in dramatic moments, but in routine. They focused on the days leading up to Jennifer's disappearance. Her schedule had not changed. Her routes were familiar. Her interactions were predictable. If something went wrong, it happened inside that pattern, not outside it. Kesse noticed how often the same elements appeared. Construction workers present early in the morning. Limited security. Blind spots and surveillance. Residents who assumed someone else would notice if something were wrong. Individually, these details meant little. Together, they formed a pattern of vulnerability. The case file revealed that several workers had been identified only by first name. Some had no listed addresses. Others had contact information that led nowhere. At the time, this had not seemed urgent. After all, nothing had happened yet. But something had happened. The Kesses also noted how often Jennifer's discomfort with the workers was minimized. It was described as unease, not fear. Comments, not complaints. The difference mattered. It explained why no formal action had been taken. In hindsight, those moments carried weight. Investigators had also considered whether Jennifer could have been taken elsewhere and brought back to her car later. But the timeline made this difficult. Parking the car at midday suggested the person responsible was unhurried, comfortable moving through public spaces. That confidence pointed again to someone who belonged in those spaces, someone who would not draw attention, someone ordinary. This realization was both clarifying and terrifying. If the person responsible blended into everyday life, then Jennifer's disappearance was not the result of extraordinary circumstances. It was the result of an ordinary moment exploited by someone willing to act. The pattern did not name a suspect, but it narrowed the field. And it reminded everyone involved of a painful truth. Extraordinary crimes often begin in ordinary places. By the second year after Jennifer Kesse's disappearance, hope had become fragile. Investigators still revisited the case periodically, but new evidence was scarce. Tips came in, but few were credible. The surveillance footage from Huntington on the Green remained the only concrete clue, and it offered no face, no identifying feature, no hint of motive. Detectives referred to the case internally as the one that won't quit because, unlike many missing person investigations that grow cold quickly, Jennifer's situation remained open, active, and agonizingly unresolved. The paradox was cruel. The very meticulousness of her routines, once a sign of safety, had become an obstacle in the investigation. Jennifer's predictability gave the perpetrator a map, but left investigators without one. Police considered multiple scenarios. Could Jennifer have been kidnapped by someone who watched her from a distance? Was it someone she knew? Perhaps a construction worker, a delivery person, or even a casual observer familiar with her routine. Every theory carried flaws. None produced a suspect. No physical evidence emerged to connect anyone to her disappearance. Investigators also explored whether Jennifer had encountered a transient person or someone passing through Orlando. The city's transient population made that difficult to confirm. The car, clean and undisturbed, suggested deliberate handling. Whoever was responsible had moved with confidence and had considered each step carefully. It was a controlled act, not a crime of desperation or panic. The public's fascination grew. The media dubbed it the midday mystery, highlighting the unsettling fact that a young woman could vanish in broad daylight in a residential complex without leaving a trace. Every anniversary of her disappearance prompted renewed attention, but no answers. For her parents, each passing month deepened the ache of uncertainty. Every tip that led nowhere felt like a personal betrayal. Each unanswered question multiplied their grief. They clung to the hope that a breakthrough would come, but as time extended into years, that hope became fragile. Law enforcement remained professional, but the case highlighted the limits of even meticulous investigation when confronted with an absence of evidence. No DNA, no fingerprints, no witnesses who could definitively place someone at the scene. And yet, investigators never closed the case. The paradox remained, a disappearance that could not be solved, but could not be abandoned. Jennifer Kesse's life, meticulously built and carefully lived, had been interrupted in a way that defied explanation. The break investigators hoped for, the lead that would finally bring clarity, never came. Time marched forward. The case remained unresolved. The questions multiplied, and the quiet hours after Jennifer Kesse walked out her door became a permanent shadow over Orlando.
As the investigation progressed, detectives turned to the people who might have seen something: the neighbors, residents, and construction workers in the mosaic at Millenia complex. At first, hope was high. Perhaps someone had noticed a strange car, a suspicious figure, or unusual behavior. Perhaps someone could place Jennifer in the moments before her disappearance. But memory proved unreliable. Weeks, months, and eventually years after January 24, 2006, witnesses struggled to recall details. Minor events that seemed ordinary at the time: someone entering a building, a truck parked in a certain spot, a person walking by faded into the background of everyday life. Our brains naturally filter out what appears unimportant, and for Jennifer, the ordinary moments were her last. Police focused on residents who lived near her building and reported being outside that morning. Their recollections were inconsistent. Some said they remembered seeing someone matching her description near the parking lot. Others were certain they had seen nothing. Some could remember the construction crews, but not who had been present that day. The inconsistencies frustrated investigators. Every potential lead had to be weighed against the possibility of false memory. In cases like this, even a seemingly credible witness could unintentionally mislead the investigation. The construction workers presented a unique problem. Many had left the area or could not be contacted. Others claimed to have no memory of Jennifer that morning. Some provided vague details about vehicles or movements, but nothing concrete. One particularly troubling realization emerged. Someone might have watched Jennifer from a distance, acting calmly while the world went about its ordinary routines. To an observer, nothing would have seemed unusual. To Jennifer, those ordinary moments became deadly. The investigators concluded that the disappearance likely relied on someone exploiting human forgetfulness. The absence of witnesses who could recall crucial details was not accidental. It was the byproduct of a meticulously executed plan, designed to make her vanish without leaving traces in memory or evidence. And in the years that followed, that absence of memory would continue to haunt everyone involved: her family, the investigators, and anyone who followed the case. The witnesses could not remember, and in not remembering, they unwittingly became part of the mystery.
By the third year after Jennifer Kesse's disappearance, the media had begun to treat her case as one of the most perplexing missing person mysteries in Florida history. News outlets, both local and national, featured segments highlighting the strange circumstances: a young woman vanishing in broad daylight, her car found miles away, and surveillance footage that revealed a faceless figure. The media attention had a dual effect. On one hand, it kept the case alive in the public consciousness. Tips poured in from viewers who thought they had seen something, remembered something, or knew someone who might be connected. On the other hand, the coverage sometimes distorted details. Some reports exaggerated timelines, speculated motives, or misrepresented facts. For Jennifer's parents, the media was both a lifeline and a source of frustration. They appreciated that public interest kept their daughter's name alive, but they were often forced to clarify misinformation. Every misreported fact risked misleading law enforcement or diverting attention from legitimate leads. Still, the coverage did generate leads that might have otherwise gone unnoticed. Anonymous tips surfaced from viewers who believed they had seen someone in the area at the time of her disappearance. One tip suggested a specific worker had acted strangely that morning. Another suggested a suspicious vehicle near her condo's entrance. Each tip required careful vetting. Investigators learned to separate signal from noise, an increasingly difficult task as the number of unverified leads grew. Some tips turned out to be credible and were followed up with surveillance footage and interviews. Others were dead ends, the result of misremembered details or misinterpretation. The coverage also had a psychological impact. The public watched the story unfold in slow motion, drawing attention to how ordinary moments walking to a car, leaving for work can be interrupted by forces beyond control. For Jennifer's family, the constant attention was exhausting, but it provided validation. They were not alone in seeking answers. Over time, the media would continue to play a role in the case. Anniversary stories, documentaries, and online discussions kept the mystery in circulation. Every new article renewed interest and occasionally prompted new tips, though none of these would ultimately lead to a resolution. Even as the years passed, the spotlight illuminated the same questions. Who took Jennifer Kesse? Why? And how could someone disappear in the middle of a busy residential area without leaving a trace? The media could raise awareness, but it could not answer those questions.
Despite the lack of breakthroughs, a core team of Orlando detectives continued to work Jennifer Kesse's case. They were seasoned professionals who understood that missing person investigations rarely followed predictable patterns. They knew that the longer a case remained unsolved, the more difficult it became, but they refused to let time dictate failure. Detectives reviewed every piece of evidence repeatedly. They revisited the condo complex, inspecting every corner, hallway, and stairwell. They spoke with residents, old and new, hoping that someone might recall something previously overlooked. Even the faintest detail, a vehicle, a conversation, a minor disturbance was considered valuable. The faceless figure on the Huntington on the Green footage remained a source of frustration. Digital enhancement techniques were applied repeatedly over the years. Video analysts examined posture, gait, clothing folds, and shadow angles. Nothing yielded a reliable identification. Detectives also coordinated with neighboring jurisdictions. Could Jennifer have been taken out of the city? Was her disappearance connected to other missing person cases? Each lead was explored and ultimately found inconclusive. No matching cases were discovered. Some officers focused on pattern analysis. They examined her routines, the daily paths she took, the predictable times she left and returned. The conclusion was consistent. The disappearance required precision. Whoever was responsible understood her schedule, her environment, and the way people moved around her. The team also maintained contact with her family, providing updates and consulting on tips. In many ways, Jennifer Kesse's parents became unofficial investigators themselves. Together, the collaboration between family and law enforcement created a network of oversight that ensured the case could never be quietly dismissed. The detectives' persistence was remarkable. They understood that solving the case might not come from a dramatic arrest or immediate lead, but from careful accumulation of small observations, cross-referencing data, and relentless follow-up. Even after years of frustration, these investigators held on to a simple principle: every case has an answer. It may take time, but no disappearance is truly permanent. And so, Jennifer Kesse's investigation continued slowly, deliberately, and without surrender. As the years passed, technological advances gave investigators new tools. Digital forensics, enhanced surveillance software, and DNA analysis promised breakthroughs. In many cases, these tools were game changers, but for Jennifer Kesse's disappearance, they produced frustratingly little. Investigators reanalyzed the Huntington on the Green footage with modern video enhancement software. Shadows, contrast, and motion blur were corrected. Frame-by-frame analysis revealed more detail in posture and clothing folds, but the figure remained unidentifiable. There was no face, no distinguishing feature, no clear movement that suggested identity. Digital forensics also examined her phone records. Advances in tower triangulation, geolocation, and metadata analysis were applied. Still, the phone had not connected since that fateful morning. There was nothing to trace, no signal, no ping, no pattern to follow. The car was revisited using updated forensic methods. DNA testing, once limited, now allowed for minute samples to be tested with high precision. Swabs of the interior and exterior produced no identifiable trace of another person. It was as if whoever handled the car had been careful to leave nothing behind. Investigators also explored the possibility that modern facial recognition could identify the individual in the surveillance footage. Still, the obstruction of the fence made comparison impossible. Nothing in the footage matched known criminal databases, missing person suspects, or prior surveillance captures. Even when technology advanced, the case refused to yield. Every tool that might have provided clarity instead highlighted the deliberate precision of the disappearance. Whoever had taken Jennifer understood not only timing and opportunity, but also the consequences of leaving traces. For law enforcement, this was both a frustration and a warning. Technology could illuminate patterns, reveal hidden evidence, and track digital footprints, but it could not uncover intent, courage, or the choices of someone meticulous enough to erase themselves from view. Jennifer Kesse's case remained one of the rare investigations where technology alone could not pierce the veil. Every attempt highlighted the mystery rather than resolving it. Her absence persisted, unbroken and untraceable.
Every year on January 24th, the anniversary of Jennifer Kesse's disappearance, the case resurfaced in the public consciousness. News outlets ran retrospectives. Social media posts revisited the mystery. Family, friends, and investigators felt the same ache all over again, a sharp reminder that time had not produced answers. For Drew and Joyce Kesse, anniversaries were particularly difficult. Each one was a measure of time without Jennifer, a marker of unanswered questions, and a reminder that her absence was permanent in one sense, yet unresolved in another. They marked the day quietly, often visiting her condo or the locations tied to her disappearance. They refused to allow her story to fade. Public attention on the anniversary sometimes prompted new tips. Individuals claimed to have seen her or the person who might have taken her, but none led to verification. Some tips were dismissed as fabrications, others as misremembered memories. Yet each led the investigators to re-examine old evidence and confirm whether any detail had been overlooked. The anniversaries also highlighted the emotional toll of unsolved cases. Family members and friends were forced to relive uncertainty each year. Grief did not diminish, it transformed into a persistent, low-level ache. The public fascination brought renewed scrutiny, but it could not restore the missing pieces of Jennifer's life. Investigators sometimes used the anniversaries to release updates, reminding the public that the case remained open. Appeals for information were made, often accompanied by images and surveillance stills. These efforts rarely yielded actionable leads, but they maintained visibility. The anniversary became symbolic. It was not just a date, it was a lens through which the case was observed, a marker of how ordinary days could hide extraordinary tragedies. Even years later, the world remembered Jennifer Kesse. Her disappearance was not forgotten, and every anniversary reinforced the central truth of the case. A young woman vanished in the middle of an ordinary day, leaving nothing but questions. The day came and went. Investigators returned to their offices. Files remained open. Tips were locked. And the quiet hours after Jennifer Kesse walked out her door continued to hold their secrets.
One of the most haunting aspects of Jennifer Kesse's disappearance was the idea that someone had been watching her, waiting for the perfect moment. The concept of an unseen observer became central to both the investigation and the public imagination. Investigators theorized that whoever took Jennifer had likely spent days or even weeks studying her routine. They would have known when she left for work, the exact path she took to her car, and the times when the parking lot was quiet. This level of planning explained why the abduction left so few traces. Someone who observed, rather than acted impulsively, could move in without being noticed. Police explored whether a pattern of surveillance could be traced to someone familiar with the condominium complex. Construction workers were obvious candidates because they were present daily and had unrestricted access. Yet background checks and interviews produced no definitive link. Some workers left the area soon after Jennifer's disappearance, but there was no evidence that connected them to the crime. Residents, too, were interviewed extensively. Many recalled seeing unfamiliar vehicles or people in the area, but memories were inconsistent. By the time the investigation intensified, much of the detail was lost to ordinary forgetfulness. The person responsible relied not only on opportunity but also on the predictable failings of human memory. This theory of an unseen observer created a psychological layer to the case. Jennifer's disappearance was not a random accident. It was an act carried out by someone who understood the ordinary, mundane world and exploited it. That same understanding allowed the perpetrator to remain invisible both to physical surveillance and to human witnesses. Even for investigators, the notion that someone could act so deliberately without leaving a trace was unsettling. It implied not only meticulous planning but also patience, confidence, and knowledge of human behavior. Whoever was responsible was careful, methodical, and untraceable. The unseen observer was a reminder of how ordinary spaces, parking lots, hallways, stairwells could hide extraordinary danger, and it suggested that Jennifer Kesse's disappearance was not a single moment of violence, but the result of calculated observation that allowed her abduction to occur seamlessly. As the investigation continued into its fourth year, detectives and private investigators pursued every tip and lead. No matter how small, some leads appeared promising at first glance, only to dissolve upon closer examination. These false starts became a frustrating pattern, glimmers of hope that ultimately offered nothing concrete. One tip suggested a suspicious van seen near Jennifer's condo the morning of her disappearance. Investigators traced the vehicle, checked registration records, and interviewed the owner. The trail ended when the owner provided an airtight alibi, and there was no evidence connecting the van to Jennifer. Another lead came from a former resident of the complex who recalled a construction worker acting strangely around the time of her disappearance. Detectives attempted to locate him, but he had moved out of state and left minimal forwarding information. The search yielded nothing. Even purported sightings of Jennifer herself produced no verifiable results. People claimed to have seen her in shopping centers, near highways, or even in other cities. Each report was investigated, yet none could be confirmed. Investigators learned to catalog and cross-reference these accounts, knowing that memory can be unreliable, especially over time. The cumulative effect of these dead ends was taxing. Investigators grew wary of false leads but knew that dismissing them prematurely could allow a crucial clue to slip by unnoticed. Every tip was a balance between skepticism and diligence. For the Kesse family, each failed lead was emotionally exhausting. Hope flared briefly, only to be extinguished by reality, yet they continued to pursue every piece of information, believing that eventually one of the thousands of leads would point to the truth. Even as new methods of investigation became available, improved surveillance technology, digital tracking, enhanced forensic analysis, the leads remained frustratingly thin. Nothing in the physical evidence had changed, and no new witnesses came forward with verifiable accounts. Jennifer Kesse's disappearance had become a case defined by absence. Absence of suspect, absence of evidence, absence of resolution. And yet, every dead end underscored a chilling reality. Someone had acted with precision and left virtually nothing behind.
By the fifth year, the emotional and psychological weight of Jennifer Kesse's disappearance had become apparent not only for her family but also for those involved in the investigation. Cases like hers leave an invisible mark on everyone connected to them. For her parents, the uncertainty was relentless. Grief requires closure, yet they were denied that basic need. Every day carried the question of Jennifer's fate. Was she alive, somewhere unknown, struggling, or alone? Or had she perished in a way that left no trace? The unknown became a constant companion, intruding into every thought, every decision, and every moment of daily life. Investigators, too, felt the strain. The inability to make progress weighed heavily. They revisited the same footage, the same reports, the same interviews, and still, no suspect emerged. Over time, the repeated exposure to an unresolved crime can lead to fatigue, cynicism, and emotional exhaustion. Detectives often describe Jennifer Kesse's case as haunting precisely because of its lack of closure. Psychologists consulted during the case emphasized the unique challenge of disappearances with no evidence. Ordinary missing person cases may involve conflict, motive, or observable actions. Jennifer's case offered none. The precision, calmness, and apparent planning of the abduction suggested a perpetrator who understood human behavior, someone who could exploit predictability without leaving a trace. This understanding affected not only the investigation but also the public perception. People were fascinated and horrified in equal measure. The idea that someone could vanish in broad daylight in an ordinary environment tapped into deep fears about control, safety, and vulnerability. The psychological toll extended to media personnel and online communities as well. Discussion forums debated theories endlessly, often amplifying the sense of helplessness that surrounded the case. Each speculation, each new angle, reminded everyone that Jennifer had simply disappeared, leaving no one able to provide answers. For her parents and the investigators alike, this case demonstrated a cruel reality. Unresolved crimes are not just unsolved, they are living wounds. They linger, refract through memory, and resist the passage of time. Jennifer Kesse's disappearance was more than a mystery, it was a persistent emotional echo that would continue to resonate through the years.
Investigators returned repeatedly to the Huntington-on-the-Green surveillance footage, the only piece of visual evidence showing the events surrounding Jennifer Kesse's disappearance. Though limited, it offered a rare glimpse into the moment before she vanished, and yet it revealed almost nothing about who was responsible. The footage showed her car parked in the lot around midday on January 24, 2006. A figure appeared behind the fence, moving in a way that suggested intent, yet the fence obscured critical details. Detectives enhanced the video, analyzing each frame for posture, gait, and clothing. Shadows were adjusted, angles corrected, yet the figure's face remained hidden and no identifying traits emerged. Analysts debated every detail. Was the figure male or female, young or old? Did their movements suggest familiarity with the area, or was it someone passing through? Each hypothesis seemed plausible, but none could be confirmed. The fence itself became symbolic, a literal barrier to identification, a reminder of the limits of observation. The footage recorded motion, but it could not record motive, thought, or intent. The person responsible had acted with awareness of what could be seen, exploiting the blind spots and shadows to remain undetected. Even when technology improved, the footage remained largely indecipherable. Modern video enhancement could clarify minor details but could not produce the face, the voice, or the identity of the figure. It became a frustrating testament to the meticulousness of the disappearance. Investigators reviewed the footage against all available databases, including known offenders, construction personnel, and prior surveillance captures. Nothing matched. No one came forward to identify the figure. The surveillance, intended as proof, became instead a reminder of the limits of knowledge. Jennifer Kesse had disappeared in a place monitored by cameras, yet the record left by those cameras revealed nothing decisive. For the investigators, the footage reinforced a stark reality: precision, planning, and patience had allowed someone to commit an extraordinary act in an ordinary environment, leaving behind only shadows and questions.
Decades might pass, but some mysteries never truly fade. Jennifer Kesse's disappearance remains one of them. The absence she left behind is not empty, it resonates with unanswered questions, unfulfilled routines, and the weight of a life interrupted. Investigators, past and present, have sifted through every lead, every tip, every fleeting memory. They have reconstructed timelines, analyzed surveillance, and tested evidence with the most advanced forensic techniques available. Yet the result remains the same: silence. A silence that speaks more loudly than any clue. Her parents, Drew and Joyce, have become symbols of persistence. Their refusal to let her case go cold embodies the human need for answers, for justice, for closure. Even without a definitive resolution, their advocacy has kept Jennifer's story alive, reminding the world that a disappearance is not simply a statistic, it is a life, a family, and a network of memories abruptly left unresolved. The condominium complex where she vanished has changed. New residents live there. Construction crews have long since departed. The ordinary spaces where she once walked now seem haunted by her absence, a void that cannot be filled. Yet the lessons remain: safety can be fragile, routines can be exploited, and even ordinary moments can harbor extraordinary danger. For law enforcement, Jennifer Kesse's case remains a reminder of the limits of evidence and the persistence of human ingenuity both in criminal planning and in the pursuit of truth. It demonstrates that some crimes are not solved by chance, but only through meticulous observation, patience, and relentless determination. The mystery persists because someone acted with precision, calm, and purpose. Whoever was responsible ensured that no trace, no clue, no witness could point directly to them. And in that precision, they created a void that stretches far beyond the physical disappearance, a void in memory, in evidence, in certainty. Jennifer Kesse's story has no conclusion that satisfies. It is a story of absence, of questions left open, and of the enduring effort to understand what happened in those quiet, ordinary hours that became extraordinary in their consequence. Her disappearance may never be explained, but the silence it left continues to speak, a testament to the life interrupted, the questions unresolved, and the human will to never forget. Do well to hit the subscribe button for more interesting discoveries of this kind.